So today you're going to be uploading your product photos into Lightroom, starting to edit them, and if you finish editing, you're going to be exporting your photos as a proof sheet only. So that's a summary sheet you can see in front of you here. Your proof sheet is worth 5 marks, and you should have a minimum of 10 photos on that sheet, and they should be your best photos that you've edited. So if you've taken more than 10, try and choose your best 10 to put on that sheet. So it should show variation in things like camera angles and different colors and ways that you've edited in those photos. When you're uploading your proof sheet, I can't show you that on this tutorial because I have the teacher's version of Sector, not the students. But this here is where you're going to be uploading your proof sheet to. So make sure you go on Sector, go to Assessments, Photography, and Proof Sheet Submission. If you cannot find that on there, just ask your teacher, because if it's not there when your teacher goes to mark it, then you will get a result of 0 for that proof sheet mark. So don't email it, make sure that it is on Sector. But in order to import your photos, remember that at the moment, when you have a look here at my files in photography, I've got my term 3 file, I've got my product photo file that I've made, and so far for this example, I've only got 4 photos, but you will of course have more than that. And this is what I'm going to upload into Lightroom. So in Lightroom, remember I need to be on the library tab to import. I'm going to hit the import button and I need to find the location. So it should be easy for me to find because when I go into my desktop, I go to photography, make sure I go to term 3, select my product photo file and just import everything that's in there. They'll all be selected. Remember that when you import them, you can't move the photos in the folder because otherwise we're going to have little exclamation marks that will appear. So make it easy for yourself and don't move them after you import. One little thing to make it easier though, over here, it has a little selection, add to collection. Now, if I check that box and go to the plus button, I can actually create like a folder for these to go into in Lightroom. So I'm going to call them my product photos just to make it easier for me to get to. And then hit create. And now I can hit import. So it's just loading. Okay. So down here you can see now under my collection panel, I will have my product photos file right here. So it's easy for me to access rather than scrolling through all my photos. So with my photos in here, remembering hopefully you haven't taken them with the date on like I have. Doesn't matter if it's on your background, but like this one where my date crosses over onto the product, that's not really that great. So hopefully you don't have that. We can try and edit it out in Lightroom, but really it's better not to have it in the first place. So with editing, remember that just select all your photos you want to edit by holding Shift and go to the Develop button. So with editing our photos one by one, what we're trying to do is not change the colors, we're trying to enhance them because we want your object, your product to still be recognizable for the colors that are actually on it. So we're not trying to change that, we're trying to enhance them and really make this product shine and look great. So for each photo you've taken, you're going to be working through the basics editing panel. So that consists of things like the exposure, contrast, and so on down the list. So all you need to do is adjust the slider. Now, we don't want to make it, too dark, too bright, so you might have to play around until you find that you are happy. So it's not just a random thing, it does take care and consideration. And remembering that we're not worried about what's going on in the background, we're only worried about what we can see on the product. So when I make certain changes, yes, it will affect the background, but because that's going to be cropped out when we actually create our ad, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to decrease my shadows, make some of that writing a bit darker, lighten some of my whites. So now you can see my product is really kind of standing out a lot better. Okay, making my blacks a little bit darker. Here with my vibrancy and saturation, don't just bump it up all the way because it just looks so unrealistic and fake. So you just have to be a little bit controlled when you bring up any saturation or vibrance. So just bump it up maybe a little bit. Okay, same with the vibrance there. Clarity, remember, is more about the detail and textures. So I don't want to bump that up all the way, but I'm going to bring it up just a little bit. Okay, remember under my tonal curve, it allows me to play around with my highlights and my shadows a little bit further. So it's always good to come back down under the tonal scale and play with these sliders because it gives you a little bit more difference compared to the shadows and highlights scroll buttons, sliders up the top in the basics menu. So I'm pretty happy with that. And if I just compare it to my original, okay, you can already see, just focusing on the product, how much clearer and brighter that product is to include on an ad compared to our original. So I'm quite happy with that for my first edit. You can play around with some of these other, sliders, but remembering that we're not wanting to change the actual colors. So one thing you can do is under the HSL editing bar, you can go to luminance, and this will actually change the luminosity of a certain color. So because I've got greens in here, I can change the luminosity, so how much they glow or how light they are. So, if I bump that all the way up, it's too strong, so I can't really see that image, and I can bump it down so it doesn't glow as much. So it's kind of a nice tool to play around with. I'm getting more of that flower kind of being seen by actually dulling it down a little bit compared to going brighter. And even my yellows doesn't change too much. So I might just leave it with my greens there, but if you've got other colours that you want to try and illuminate a little bit more or dull down, then play around with the luminance panel on the HSL. So once I'm done with one, remember, I go to my next and repeat the process. So it should be taking you about, 4 to 5 minutes to edit one particular photo. And remembering that they have to be thought out, not just random, because your teacher will be able to tell when they look at your proof sheet of how much you've actually edited. So I'm going to pretend that I've edited all my photos and I'm going to create my proof sheet now. So just pause this video while you do your editing and then come back once you're ready to upload your proof sheet. So to upload my proof sheet, I need to be on the library tab. And I need to make sure that every photo that is edited, again, I'm pretending that I've got all of mine edited, but everything I want edited needs to be highlighted. So hold down Command and click, or click on your first photo, hold Shift, and click on your last photo to highlight everything. So what I'm going to do is go to Print, because this is how we create our proof sheet. Now it's probably still on your last setting, okay, from when we did our shapes and shadows and ghost. So, if you've got 10 or so photos, then, yours should look a lot more full than mine because that's what you're aiming for. Remember, if you only put up 4 photos like I have, then there's no way that you're going to get a pass for your proof sheet. So please make sure you have at least 10 different photos, different angles, different products included on your proof sheet. And make sure they are really good examples that show off your editing skills. Okay, so you can use this template. You can even change, see here where it says rows and columns, to maybe make your photos look a little bit bigger. So if I reduce my columns, okay, like this, it just makes it a little bit easier to see my products. So that's 4 rows, 3 columns. That means I can fit in 12 photos, which is probably a good one to aim for. Now, if yours doesn't come up automatically as a grid, just make sure that over the side here, choose the 4x5 contact sheet, and that will allow the grid to come up. So the only last thing I've got to do is do my print to file. So if yours doesn't have print to file, make sure that under print job here, it says JPEG file, not printer. Okay, so JPEG file should be selected and do print to file. Make sure when you save it, name it as your first name, okay? So first name, and just put product proof sheet. And make sure that you probably want to save it into your photography folder, but it might be easier to just save it on your desktop and then move it thereafter. So make sure you save it. This little loading bar will show you that it's uploading, and then you'll have that object now on your desktop, like so. Okay, now this is what you need to upload onto Sector following the slide that I first showed. So I'm going to show that again now. So here in red and in bold in the black are the tabs that you need to click on in Sector in order to submit this. So please make sure you follow those steps now, get that uploaded, and if you have any problems, you need to let your teacher know.